Right. We wanted to take a closer look at a story that came out this week, and it has some impact on some of our field day audience because Vast Data announced that what they are calling their AI factory was released yesterday, and we did get a detailed look at it thanks to a Tech Field Day showcase. Vast is collaborating with NVIDIA, Supermicro, and Run AI to demonstrate their ability to operationalize AI at scale. Highlighting their rapid growth and their partnerships, Vast Data's architecture supports new capabilities like Vast Database and Vast DataEngine. Discussions cover integrating Vast Data with NVIDIA BlueField-3 DPUs, optimizing Supermicro hyperscale servers, and running full-stack AI operations at Run AI. The showcase emphasized the benefits of DPUs, power savings, and strategic partnerships. It also explored the complexities of deploying AI at scale, emphasizing the integration of data processes and the role of Run AI in managing GPU resources. Now, Stephen, that's a lot of information to unpack in such a fast showcase, but you were there, and I wanted to get you to kind of start off and give us an overview of kind of what was discussed and what makes it important to the industry.
So we're seeing a lot more interest in terms of operationalizing AI in the enterprise in optimizing the AI data pipeline. What that means is, well, let's take a step back. What is AI? What is really happening here? Well, first off, AI is a multi-step process. You have to do data collection and organization. You have to do data, training. You have to bring in other data sets. You have to implement the machine learning or AI-based application, and you have to integrate that with enterprise data in order to have something useful. We've spoken quite a lot about that this season on utilizing tech, which is focused on AI. The fact that essentially an LLM is really only a user interface. It's not really a knowledge engine. The best LLM is going to be integrated with structured data on the back end in order to provide validated and valid answers instead of hallucinations or maybe accurate information, but maybe not exactly what you're looking for. So if we consider the LLM to be more of a user interface, then that shows just how important data is going to be at every step here. And we're seeing a lot of companies really focused on this data pipeline for AI. Essentially, if you're an enterprise that's trying to implement AI-based applications, you have to start asking yourself, where is my data? What is my data? How am I going to organize that data? How am I going to move it all together, present it for AI training as well as for the AI application itself? And that makes distributed data platforms much, much more attractive. That is definitely a topic we've been hearing from companies like Vast Data. We've also heard about this from many of the other companies in the space. And I'm going to give you a quick spoiler here. Number one, go watch AI Field Day 4, where we talked a lot about this. But number two, keep an eye out because we're going to be doing an AI data infrastructure field day event later this year, where we're going to try to bring together all of the companies in this very complicated and interesting space to talk about how they're approaching this challenge of collating and presenting data to AI applications. Now, Vast is pretty well positioned in this market because they make something they call disaggregated shared everything storage. Essentially, they've created a storage platform that is not in one spot. It's not like this is the storage array and everybody has to talk with that. What they've done is they've created a scalable shared everything storage environment that allows each element to participate as sort of a board of storage. Then they extended that with things like what they call the Vast database, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a literal structured database that can run on this as well. And they are integrating that with AI applications, with HPC applications, with cloud, as well as the enterprise data center to basically make not just storage, but actual data available at scale. Then what they did is they reached out to partners, and that is absolutely critical. So this launch, this announcement, this field day showcase included 3 key partners from Vast. Number one, we have the elephant in the room, NVIDIA, who not only make the GPUs that are used for a lot of AI data training, especially, but also inferencing, but they also make their own basically disaggregated computer We've talked a lot about the Grace and the Grace Hopper and things like that, which uses ARM cores in addition to GPUs. But they also make networking hardware, which I'm going to have Tom talk about here in a second, including DPUs, which offload some of the processing work to the networking, the NIC, instead of having it all function all on the CPU. So NVIDIA is really a key here, and VAST is announcing that they are completely integrated with NVIDIA. They are going to be delivering the VAST disaggregated storage environment, shared everything storage environment. They're going to be doing that on these NVIDIA devices natively, which is super powerful. And one reason that VAST is getting so much traction in NVIDIA dominated AI environments. The next partner is Supermicro. Supermicro obviously also is a big player in the industry. They are putting together, they're the trusted supplier for most data centers, and they are delivering VAST right there, integrated with their hardware for storage, for processing, et cetera. So, I mean, Supermicro is important. But then Run AI, this is important because Run AI is on the software side. They're talking about how this stuff really works. They're talking about the data capture, the data preparation, moving data where it needs to be, operationalizing this whole thing in a way that really is repeatable and structured and ready for practical use. So essentially, VAST has delivered a solution that looks like, if it's not already, it's going in the right direction to be an essential element of any kind of enterprise data stack. And of course, they're also beating their drum, talking about all the wins that they've made. They're partnering with companies, popular companies in this space, to basically roll this out everywhere. And they've gotten a lot of industry traction. But Tom, I want to zoom in a little bit on the question that I brought up earlier: NVIDIA, networking, DPUs, and specifically the fact that there's not a lot of x86 in the NVIDIA picture, and that's really interesting, isn't it?
It is. And that's one of the things that NVIDIA has really been kind of staking their claim on, is this idea that they can port a lot of this to the ARM architecture. You've seen this a lot recently because NVIDIA's always kind of had their own way of doing things, whether it was rewriting your workloads to run on their GPUs using CUDA, or then the networking equivalent of CUDA, which is called DOCA, DOCA, that they want you to port this to their low power, uh, more simplified instruction set. RISC architecture really did change everything, because the x86 complications of their architecture means they're power hungry, means they really love more cores, means the CPU needs to be doing everything. And NVIDIA blew that up by saying, well, what if we just put a whole bunch of CPUs in the system instead of a whole bunch of cores? And that's really where this idea of DPUs started taking off. And once DPUs started becoming a foundational element of what was going on in a system, it changed the way we looked at networking. All you have to do is go look at some of the stuff that Amazon talked about with Nitro, where they're using those Nitro DPUs to accelerate communications. They're getting rid of TCP because for what their workloads look like, they don't need to do that. You couldn't do that with a traditional networking stack or a traditional x86 architecture. But more importantly, when you look at what VAST is doing, they're running their system, their AI system, directly on a BlueField DPU. That is not something I would have ever expected to see if you'd have asked me 8 years ago, if this was even remotely possible. Why would you want to run all of your stuff on there? Latency. Latency matters more than anything else now. When you look at all of the designs of these gigantic AI systems that NVIDIA has been putting out, it's all about trying to scale them as wide as possible with the least amount of latency. That's why they still use InfiniBand. If you want to make sure that your data gets delivered in the right amount of time with the least amount of latency, yeah, InfiniBand is king. But even NVIDIA knows that InfiniBand isn't going to be king forever. So that's why they released their new Spectrum X Ethernet architecture for doing AI communications. What is one of the linchpins of Spectrum X? It's BlueField-3. You have to run a BlueField-3 DPU in your server architecture to be able to enable Spectrum X. End of story. That means that anybody who has the capability of running things on a DPU close to the workloads has a huge advantage when this architecture gets built out. And the other thing to know about Spectrum X is that it is kind of NVIDIA's future. A lot of cloud companies don't want to deploy InfiniBand because it has no real additional value beyond the customer that deploys it. They would rather run something a little bit more standard like Ethernet so that they can drive value out of it for multiple customers. They can reuse that architecture down the road. And that's why NVIDIA has kind of backed Spectrum X as much as they have. I think that they see the InfiniBand has value for certain applications, certain kind of transition mechanisms, but they really want Spectrum X to take off. That means getting more BlueField-3 DPUs into devices so that they can kind of enable that architecture. And with companies like Vast that are building specifically to work with a BlueField-3 DPU, that has a lot of upside for everybody. So I would expect Vast to kind of be the vanguard of having solutions that are going to run directly on these DPUs.
Yeah, and if you're interested in how this all works, by the way, we did have a very specific, in-depth discussion. John Mao and John Kim from NVIDIA discussed how Vast and NVIDIA are working together to enable this. Just look in your favorite Google for running Vast and NVIDIA BlueField, and you'll find the video. You can also find it at techfieldday.com. Another thing I'll call out, though, is Vast obviously is limited in some of the names that they can share because they're working with hyperscalers, and hyperscalers don't like people knowing how their infrastructure works. But they were able to tell the Field Day community about some of their customer wins, and it's pretty impressive what's happening. They, for a long time, have talked about Pixar using Vast for rendering. But we've got companies that they're able to talk to in the hyperscale space, like Lambda, Core 42, and Genesis Cloud, that are selecting this solution. Frankly, if you are a hyperscaler that's trying to enable customers or internal customers even to do ML training, you need a distributed data platform like Vast or some of Vast's competitors, honestly, in order to support that. And they're basically lining up to buy this stuff. The other interesting thing is that this market is rapidly expanding. The total addressable market for AI-enabled storage is growing. We're going to have some more detailed data about that on the Future of Intelligence platform soon. But what I'm hearing from the analysts is that the AI race has dramatically influenced the total addressable market for storage sales. And that's one reason that all these storage companies are diving in here and becoming more full-featured. Now, I think the thing that's going to spell the difference between success and failure for these companies, though, is how credibly they're able to deliver integrated solutions with partners and how credibly they're able to deliver higher level data platform services. Another thing that we heard John talk about at the Tech Field Day Showcase was, for example, offering native Kafka and native Spark on the Vast platform. Stuff like that really can make a difference because, number one, it's one less thing to manage, but number two, it can be accelerated by platforms like this, which makes it work way better than running it standalone on plain old storage. And I think that things like that and the Vast database and so on, all of this makes it look like Vast is well positioned to succeed in this emerging AI data platform space. So as I said, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail at a future Field Day event. But do check out the announcements here. I think it's pretty interesting what Vast is doing.